Okay, still almost live. Okay, you're live, Clayton.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Pleasure to be here. I want to thank Jolene and NWI for allowing me to use their platform to share with you this afternoon. My Cheyenne name is Pivanahin, Good Warrior, born and raised on the Northern Cheyenne Reservation, one of 9 children, and it's just a real pleasure to be here. My Cheyenne relatives include wooden leg, spotted elk, wild hog. I also have some ancestors from Scotland, small as a name from that country. And I also have relatives in Mexico that go by the name of Arredondo. So as a mixed blood and 1/2 Northern Cheyenne tribal member, res boy, I'm 68 years old, and you're going to see some images of me. Going to be sharing my family history with you to serve as an example of how important it is to know our family history, to let go of some of the strong feelings from the trauma we've experienced, as well as our parents and grandparents and so on. And some of the themes we're going to talk about today are going to include the importance of knowing our family history, forgiveness, letting some feelings go, and seeking happiness. It's always good to focus on the cup being half full instead of half empty. So we'll challenge you, and we're going to encourage you guys to put some notes in the chat box and ask some good questions so we can have some interaction. So before we jump right in, I just want to take a moment for us to take a deep breath, and I want to start in a prayerful manner and just ask us to think good thoughts, prayerful thoughts regarding our relatives who have lost loved ones and friends to COVID-19, those that have lost their jobs and are unemployed, those that have lost homes and livestock to the wildfires, those that are struggling with racial inequality, gender inequality. This is a very difficult time in the history of our nation. And so I just want to send out some prayerful thoughts. So I want you to work with me here. We're going to breathe in. Ready? Breathe in. Hold it, and let it out. Thank you for those prayerful supporting thoughts. So let's jump in, relatives. Let's put the first slide on. Jolene, I don't see it on my screen. Do people have it up there? There we go. So the Good Road of Life is one of our curriculums. We have another one called Native Hope. They are culture and resilience-based curriculums that are endorsed by federal and state agencies and tribal leaders as effective culture-based programs. And so this ledger art comes from a good friend of mine from Standing Rock, Butch Thunderhawk, awesome artist, and he has given permission for us to use some of his artwork for our curriculum. And so I'm going to be sharing my family. And so let's move to the first slide. This is my wife and daughter. Our daughter just graduated from the Fashion Institute of Technology in New York City. She had to cut her internship short because of the epidemic in New York City, but she finished online. And like all the students from the class of 2020, it's difficult to find employment, but she's doing well. My wife is from the beautiful country of Lebanon, and that's me and my little family. We have some other older children, but in our home this summer, it's the 3 of us. So I wanted to share with you that this is my immediate family, and I'll be talking about some of our history. So if we move on to the next slide, as we do our wellness and healing journey, and we focus on our strengths, especially our culture, I'll share with you my definition of cultural resilience. It's using our native culture to overcome trauma, tragedy, threats, and other stresses in our life. And the good news is that federal agencies now see culture-based programs as being effective, things that we have known forever, but now our partners in the federal and state government acknowledge that. I just wanted to point out in this awesome ledger artwork by Butch Thunderhawk, Jolene Joseph is in there with that blue umbrella on. You might recognize her, and if you don't, I just wanted to point that out. So as we move on to the next screen, this is a picture of my parents. My father's Cheyenne name is Redman Mahadan. My mother is Bird Woman, Dixie Hutt. And it was very healing for me to explore and identify the trauma that they went through as children and adults. And as we get to know the history of our parents and grandparents, we can reconcile whatever strong feelings we may have, unresolved issues, lay them to rest. And what we usually discover, relatives, is that their trauma was probably much more overwhelming than ours could ever have been. And so that's why it's so important to know our family history. So my father was the oldest living veteran, World War II veteran. He walked on to the Creator in 2015. Our mother walked on to the Creator in 2013 from complications from the West Nile. And before they left, I was able to say these things to them. And it's important to say these things to the people that we love, preferably before they leave us. We say to them, I love you. We say to them, I forgive you. We say to them, please forgive me. And we say to them, I will remember you. I will never forget you. And we say to them, thank you for being my mom and dad. Thank you for loving me. And so every day on my run with my res dog, I say these things to them, even though they're not here physically. I know that they hear me and I stay connected to them. So I'm going to move on and share with you some slides that are examples of my sources of strength. Growing up a res boy, powwows and Northern traditional dancing was one of the things that I love to do. These days, as I'm older, I still get out there and I love to gourd dance. I MC powwows and rodeos, and that's a strength of mine that keeps me healthy. The next image, being from the Northern Plains, from the horse and buffalo nations, we grew up with horses. Horses are good medicine. For me, it was ranching and rodeo, learning to appreciate the land and nature. And the other thing that helped me to stay well is athletics and sports. Here's a picture of me winning my age division at the Bloomsday race in Spokane, Washington, with 70,000 runners, placing about in the top 30 overall. And so running, basketball, marathon running, and horses are some of the strengths that I continue to do, and they keep me healthy and strong. And the next slide is a picture of my grandfather, Tom Small. Tom, his family immigrated from Scotland, so Small is a name from that country. He was a horseman, grew up in Texas, followed a cattle herd to Montana when he was about 14 or 15 years old and fell in love with a beautiful Cheyenne woman. And that produced my father. My father is one of 13 children, 10 brothers and 3 sisters. This man, my grandfather, instilled in his children a love of land and nature and ranching and how to be a good horseman. And today the Small family is pretty famous in Indian country for rodeo, producing rodeo champions. So the next slide, how does that play out for me? Well, hello, I'm a horseman. This is me riding my paint down the Rio Grande Trail this summer. I try to get out and stay active and ride my horses. With stay home and quarantine, I'm out there 4 or 5 days a week. So these are some of the sources of strength for me. The next slide is a picture of my father while he was attending Chemawa Indian School in Salem, Oregon. His family, him and his brothers, went to the BIA boarding school on the Northern Cheyenne Reservation in Montana. And then from there, they went on to Chemawa. And for him, the boarding school was a pretty positive experience. He said, they taught me how to work and how to be a rancher and how to be self-sufficient. And the next slide is him as in the Army, served in World War II, was a disabled veteran. And the greatest gift that my father gave me, relatives, was to be kind and gentle as a man, to be generous, to take care of your family. For a while in my youth, I used to think that his kindness and gentleness was a weakness, but I discovered as I became a recovering knucklehead that the best gift that my father gave to me was to be a kind, gentle man and compassionate and empathetic and loving to your family. So I really appreciate his gift to me and that teaching. The next image is my grandmother. This is my mother's mother. Her name is Jessie Spotted Elk. My mother was an orphan child. She never knew her mother in this picture here. Jessie, her mother, my grandmother, died shortly after giving birth to my mother. And this picture was discovered just a couple years ago. And we never knew Jessie, but she was the mother of my mother and just a very strong Native woman. So let me just say a few words about the importance of honoring the strength of our Native women. We Cheyenne people have a saying, a slogan, a philosophy that the battle is not over until the hearts of the women are on the ground. And then it's over and then it's finished. So many of our Native women, in addition to being mothers and caretakers of our family and home, fought in our wars. One of my great-grandmothers by the name of Buffalo Calf Road Woman fought in the battle that defeated the 7th Cavalry, June 25th, 1876 in Montana. And she, Buffalo Calf Road Woman, the Cheyenne elders say, was the warrior who struck the fatal blow to General Custer. So if you are a strong Native woman, I want you to holler out a Lulu and a Lili right now just to honor the power of our Native women. The next slide is a picture of my mother's grandfather, Richard Woodenlegs. They say that when he was a young man, he was strong and powerful, that he could walk and run all day. He never got tired. His legs must be made of wood. And so his Cheyenne name was White Buffalo Bull, shaking off the dust. And he was a very strong leader. He walked from Oklahoma to Montana in the trail of tears of our people returning to our homeland. The next image is Richard as an elder. He was a ledger artist, he was a judge, he was a scout, and he raised my mother part-time. My mother tells me stories that they used to take their horse and buggy, she and her grandmother, and Richard would take a team and wagon and they would travel 4 or 5 days from Ashland, Montana to Miles City, Montana to pick up supplies and groceries. Those were some of her fondest memories of her grandparents. And the next image is my friend Butch Thunderhawk, his ledger art. We have a curriculum that is devoted to helping our Native men in their wellness and healing. And our men struggle because of the impact of colonization. You named the risk factor, and our Native men oftentimes are at the top of the list. What helps our men and what has helped me is our spirituality, and to talk about the trauma in our life, which is the clinical term is epigenetics, which means talking about our trauma is healing and letting go of those strong feelings so that we don't pass that knucklehead behavior onto our children and grandchildren. So the next slide is a Far Side cartoon using our humor. I'm a practicing trickster, relatives. So this, I think this here, these 3 Indian men, I think that one that stepped on the horn is Jolene's good husband. And he blows his cover and the other 2 look at him as they try to sneak up on this cowboy and they say, "And you call yourself an Indian?" So our Native men, we struggle with shame and guilt, and we get angry. We turn to drugs and alcohol and violence. 1 in 3 Indian men ends up incarcerated. And so to my women friends and relatives, don't give up on us. We need your support. We need your encouragement in our healing journey. But our men, we also need to talk to other men, not just about sports and weather, but about matters of the heart. So moving on, I'm going to pause on this slide. I've covered a lot of ground real quickly here, but I want to see, Jolene, if we have anybody that has a comment or maybe a question. You can put that in the chat box, everybody. All right. So let's talk about emotional resilience. What is that? And how will that help us in our healing journey? I already gave you a definition of cultural resilience, which is using our culture to overcome trauma. But we also have to address emotional resilience. And let me just walk through these. This picture, by the way, is Glacier Park, home of the Blackfeet Nation. And we traveled up there last summer. My son, Clayton Jr., married this very wonderful, strong Blackfeet woman, and they had their wedding right up there in Glacier Park. Beautiful country. So emotional resilience, our ability to adapt to stressful situations. And if we don't have that resilience emotionally, well, hello, we can develop it. We can acquire it. What are some examples of making our emotional resilience stronger? Practicing our greatest source of strength as Native people, which is our spirituality, our cultural resilience. Move, breathe, exercise. The research says we should be out there 45 minutes a day, moving. And the hardest part, relatives, is kicking ourselves out the door. Once we're out there, it feels good. And so we have to work on that physical wellness, as well as our emotional wellness, spiritual well-being. And be positive, have hope, have compassion, have empathy, see the cup half full instead of half empty. I jokingly talk about Chicken Littles out there in Indian country, cynical, negative, and it's a contagious disease. You know, you start hanging around with negative people, you catch that disease, and pretty soon the whole community, the whole reservation is thinking that way. And how we feel about hope and promise and the future is really up to us. So remain positive. Express your feelings. Epigenetics, talking about our trauma is healing. Jolene, I lost the image there. I don't know if you can help me out here. So we're talking about emotional resilience, perseverance, when we, which means don't give up. When we fall down, pick yourself up, brush the dust off, and keep going forward. Laugh and celebrate the good stuff. Be optimistic. Be supportive. Be a good relative. Listen to songs of hope and happiness. We lost an icon of the civil rights movement, Representative John Lewis, this summer. He marched with Martin Luther King and others. I saw an image of him on YouTube where he was dancing to the song called Happy, and brought a smile to my face to see this icon listening to a song that made him get out there and move and dance. So emotional resilience, what are the ways, relatives, that you strengthen the expression of your feelings? There's 4 kinds of feelings out there: mad, sad, glad, happy. They all need to be expressed in a healthy, legal, and appropriate way. So Jolene, I've lost my image, but let's move on to stages in relationships.
Yeah, it's still there on the screen.
Okay, are we on relationships?
Yes.
Okay, aho. So let me just take a moment and take a breath, everybody. I'm many things. I wear many hats, and I'm getting to that point in life where you have to accept that you're an elder, and you should have acquired some wisdom and knowledge in your journey, in my journey. So one of my goals is to get older and wiser, and not just to get old. And so in order for that to happen, we have to recognize that when it's all said and done, we're just a common person. I'm just a common man. And I want to speak to you in that frame of reference this afternoon, relatives, that I'm just a work in progress, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with where I'm at, and that's something we all need to focus on, is that each day is a new day, and we have a chance to do some good things. So part of our wellness is to work on our relationships. So these are stages that we go through. And let me just give you an example. And as I do that, I want you to reflect on where you are in your relationships with your spouse, children, coworkers, siblings. Codependence, AKA, is the honeymoon stage, where everything is wonderful and blissful, and you're infatuated and you're in love. You can't eat or sleep. You probably lose about 40 pounds. You get so light, you just kind of drift into the sky and look down at the earth, and life can't get any better than that. And I want you to hit the rewind button, relatives, and see if you can remember a moment in time when you were in stage one of a relationship. Well, unfortunately, we don't stay there. We move into stage two, which is counterdependence, which was conflict. We argue, we disagree. And a key skill that we have to survive stage two in a relationship is communication skills, listening, giving and receiving feedback, not having to have a philosophy of my way or the highway, negotiate, reconcile, find common ground. And in order to do that, ladies and gentlemen, we have to be on our own wellness path. We have to be comfortable with who we are in order to be successful in stage two. So ask yourself if you have those mediation and communication skills these days. To take a breath. Sometimes we have to take a breath. Let me give you some. When we all get angry, by the way, anger is a healthy emotion. It needs to be expressed in a healthy and legal manner. So I'm going to give you 4 anger management tips. And as I give these to you, I want you to think about your ability to do these things when you're angry. Number 1, say it with me out loud. When I'm angry, I won't hurt myself. Number 2, when I'm angry, I won't hurt others, especially my family. Number 3, when I'm angry, I will forgive myself or others. And number 4, when I'm angry, I'll take a time out and go calm down. So if you can do those 4 things, you can probably get through stage 2. And stage 3 is independence. Giving our spouse, children, friends some freedom to have their own life outside of the relationship. This is really difficult for some of us Native men. We get jealous and we get resentful, and we get anxious. Our spouse or partner might say, hey, the women at work and we want to go to the casino Friday night. We're stressed out. We want to just have dinner together and do some dancing. Is it okay if I go out with my coworkers? So the answer, relative, should be absolutely. I'll cook dinner, I'll do laundry, I'll take care of the kids, and just call me when you get there. And here's another $20. Maybe you'll win something for us. So the question, relatives, is how many of you can do that? How many of you can be okay with allowing some independence while still being in a committed relationship? So I want you to think about that. On the other hand, if a man comes home and tells his wife or partner, girlfriend, that he's stressed out from work and man, he's just thinking about relapsing, and he says to his significant other, there's a powwow down in Lame Deer this weekend. Man, I haven't gone to a powwow all year. Is it okay if I go by myself to the powwow? And the answer, ladies, should be absolutely. Have a good time. Make sure that you take your phone and in your wallet, and just call me when you get there and call me when you're coming back home. So giving each other independence can be tricky. It's a test of our wellness, ladies and gentlemen. And then stage 4, co-creation. The examples are no secrets. You know everything about each other. You finish each other's sentences. You're vulnerable. You laugh and cry and just share everything. And people say, OMG, that couple is even starting to look alike. So my relatives, I'm going to ask you honestly, you have to answer honestly, what stage are you in with your spouse or partner, with your children, with your coworkers? So we're going to talk about happiness a little later. And one of the examples of long-term happiness in our lives is the ability to have good relationships. If we have good relationships, we are happy forever. So Jolene, we'll see if we have any takers on healthy relationships. Chat box, questions. Everybody, let's take a big breath one more time. And let's move on to seeking happiness. Jolene, can you shout it out that it's on the screen?
Yep, it's on the screen.
All right. So some of you, for the younger people that are watching, maybe college age, university, one of the most popular classes for the last several years has been a class on happiness, seeking happiness. Young people love this class, and for good reason. So why should we seek happiness? It's a psychological science of what makes life worth living. Why should we do it? Well, here's some pretty good examples. The research says we have better health, we live longer, we have more fulfilling relationships, we have a higher income, our work performance is better, we're connected to our community, we increase our happiness. How does that happen? Well, here's check out the screen. 50% of our ability to be happy is in our DNA. It's in our genetics. In other words, if our parents were happy people, there's a good chance we'll be the same. 10% of our happiness comes from our job, our career, or maybe where we're living. And 40%, this is the eye opener, 40% of our ability to be happy is within our control. In other words, we need to choose to be happy, or we can choose to be Chicken Little and gloom and doom, and the sky is falling. So if you're sitting next to someone, relatives, tell him or her, hello, don't be that guy. So what does it take for us to be happy long term? Check out those examples. When we work on our relationships, we just talked about that. When we work on our personal wellness and healing, when we give back to our community with volunteering and generosity, those things make us happy forever. Now there's also short-term happiness. Winning $20,000 at the casino, being a champion powwow dancer, getting a new car, getting a raise. Those make us happy, but it's short term. We need to focus on what makes us happy in the long term. All right. There's page 2 here. Let's move to the next slide, Jolene. Happiness continued. Is that up?
Yep.
Okay. How many of you are always worrying about yesterday, the past? It's easy to do. The reality, relatives, is water under the bridge. It's gone, it's past, it's history. But unfortunately, when we dwell on the past, we get depressed. So tell your neighbor next to you, don't be that guy. When we worry about the future, what's going to happen tomorrow, next year, 5 years from now, we have anxiety attacks. We end up in the ER thinking we're having a heart attack or stroke, and we're just being anxious. So the lesson here, relatives, is focus on just today, right now. Don't be trying to multitask while you're listening to Clayton Small. Just focus on what we're doing right now. And if you're able to do that, you are in a peaceful state. Life is good. And what helps us to do that? Well, some of the terms that are used today clinically are being mindful, which means focusing on right now. Don't be thinking ahead or thinking about the past. Meditate, self-care, and of course, our ceremonies. When we're in a ceremony, we have to focus on being present and being prayerful. So look at the next right-hand side there, everybody. Our fear can hold us back. When we all have moments when we are so afraid that we can barely breathe and we feel like we can't move, and we have to walk through that. We have to acknowledge I'm scared. And for Native men, that's hard to do. It's easy for us to say I'm angry, but it's difficult for us to say I'm hurt or I'm sad or I'm afraid. And it's important to do that, walk through that. Here's something that's pretty powerful. 90% of the things that we worry about that give us fear, 90% of those things are never going to happen. The 10% of our fears that truly do happen, the Creator gives us time to address those things and work through them. So this is food for thought, relatives. Give us some of your thoughts about where you are with seeking happiness in your life.
There was a question, Clayton, about what is your take on depression and diagnosed depression?
Very good question. Well, there's two kinds of depression. One is everyday depression that we all get, especially during these COVID pandemic times and unemployment and racial inequality. Everyone is going to get depressed, and that's normal. And so when we are depressed, we have to acknowledge that, get out of denial, get some help, talk to somebody, and work through it. And that will pass. Tomorrow's a new day. But there is also clinical depression, which is about brain chemistry. And sometimes this is a family predisposition. Families pass clinical depression on to the next generation. And it's not a curse necessarily, but it means you have to get help. You have to maybe get on some antidepressant medication and check with your doctor regularly. And if you do that, life is good. Life is normal. But depression is something that we all have to learn how to cope with in a healthy way. And FYI, everybody, September is National Suicide Prevention Month. And it's important to acknowledge. I'm going to give you three or four warning signs when our relatives are struggling with depression. They're going to be feeling alone. They're going to be feeling anxious, depressed, and hopeless. And so when you or one of your family members or spouse or friend is you're the first line of defense, relatives. When you see someone who's feeling alone, anxious, depressed, and hopeless, you need to be a good relative. Offer support, offer encouragement. And if you do that, you save a life. We all get down and we all need some support. That's called peer counseling. Adults helping adults, youth helping youth. It is very powerful. So powerful that 8 out of 10 suicides are preventable if we are a good relative and we see someone that needs help, we're there for them. I hope that gets to your question. Jolene, do you have anything else in there?
No.
Let's move on to forgiveness, letting go. Is that up on the screen, Jolene?
Yes.
All right. So another word, one of my powerful Native woman friends said, I don't like the word forgiveness. She said, we should use the term letting go. So whichever term that you prefer, let's take some time to talk about it. Everybody, I want you to, I'm going to give you 2 examples and I want you to pick one of them. The first example is a time in your past where someone hurt you or betrayed you. And every time you think about that past situation, you get angry all over again. Well, we could stay angry for the rest of our life. How do we get over that, being angry? Well, the answer is we have to forgive that person. And it's not because they deserve it. It's because we want to be working on our self-care. We want to empower ourselves to get on with our life and to continue our healing journey. So I want you to either take this example or the next one that's on the screen. Think of a time in your past where you hurt or betrayed someone. And every time you think about that past situation where you hurt or betrayed someone, you feel embarrassed and ashamed all over again. Guilty, busted. You could feel that way for the rest of your life. How do you get over that? Well, hello, you have to forgive yourself. And I think it's more difficult to forgive ourselves than it is to forgive others. We are very hard on ourselves, and we need to work on that. So I want you to pick one of those two examples. A time where someone hurt you or a time where you hurt someone. And I want you to work on that, to think about, reflect on what will it take for me to forgive myself or to forgive others. And forgiveness, here's some key words about forgiveness. Forgiveness is about love, mercy, and grace. Those are key themes. Grace in particular. Grace means when we humble ourselves and we say, Creator God, Heavenly Father, I cannot do this by myself. I really need you to help me out here and walk with me, stand beside me. And when we do that, we find ourselves in a state of grace and we can work through forgiving ourselves and forgiving others. Love, mercy, and grace. And it's not about that person deserving it. And maybe we take it, look kind of like one step at a time. Maybe I can forgive the act, but I can't quite forgive the person yet, but I'm going to work on it. I love the expression from the Buddha from 1,000 years ago. Holding on to anger is like drinking the poison and expecting the other person to die. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's not going to happen. We end up hurting ourselves. When we judge ourselves, when we judge others for making mistakes, we stay stuck, we stay paralyzed, and life is not good. The mantra that I like to encourage people to use as they do forgiveness work. You say it out loud. In fact, if you're comfortable, read it out loud with me. In that situation, at that time, I did the best I could. That's good enough. Today, I choose to let those feelings go. So, when we're younger, we're not as wise as we are when we're older. We end up getting several PhDs from the School of Hard Knocks. I think that's probably the best degree that we can have, is learning from our mistakes, not staying stuck. Acknowledging that when that happened to me, or when I did that to someone else, I was a knucklehead. I wasn't on a wellness journey, wasn't on a path. And I just did the best I could at that time, and I need to let those feelings go and get on with my life. All right, Jolene, do we have any comments, questions regarding forgiveness?
Lots of people are agreeing with you and telling you hello. Somebody wants to know how to get a copy of the PowerPoint, and I just listed your email.
Okay, awesome.
Yep.
So let me challenge. Jolene and I are going to challenge everybody that's listening in to get the heck out of denial. In fact, if you're sitting next to someone, tell them right now, hello, get out of denial. Denial is not a river in Egypt. We need to acknowledge that we have some work to do, whether it's on forgiveness or relationships or just being a good relative, just trying to find a state of grace and being okay with asking for help. I'm just a common person and I sure could use some help here and support. It's okay to allow yourself to be in that state. So Jolene, let's go to Journey to Wholeness. Is that up?
Yep, it's up.
So check out the NAC teepee there. Raise your hand if you sat in on a couple peyote meetings all night, taking in that medicine, drinking that tea, singing those songs, sitting next to that fire where that cedar is put on all night, having that sacred woman come in about 2 a.m. with an expression of healing, having a good breakfast the next morning. Man, our native ceremonies are thebomb.com. So I want you to look at this list, Journey to Wholeness. I want you to pick 3 of these bullets that in your heart of hearts, when you're not in denial, when you have an open mind, if you work on these 3 things, you're going to be a little further along in your healing journey. So let me read them out loud. And as I do that, I want you to pick 3. And then out of those 3, I want you to pick number 1. Sobriety, acceptance, forgiveness, balance, peace, healthy relationships, family preservation, generosity and service, education, career, a job, mentoring, being a role model, communication skills, intimacy. Let me just elaborate on intimacy for my brothers, for our Native men. Oftentimes, Native men think intimacy means having sex. Wrong. Intimacy means being vulnerable, saying, being okay with saying, I'm afraid, I'm hurt, I'm sad, being romantic. It has nothing to do with sex necessarily, FYI. Intimacy. Native pride, being proud to be Native. All right, so everybody pick 3, and then out of those 3, pick number 1. And if you know that if you work on these 3 things, you're going to be further along in your wellness and healing journey. And Jolene, I'm going to let you jump in here. Being a powerful Native woman, what are a couple of those things that you are working on or have graduated from? You got a diploma.
I don't know about graduating. I feel, of course, I'm proud to be Native, and that helps me to have peace in my life. I have lots of peace and calmness, even though like I'm surrounded by smoke and ash and all kinds of stuff right now. Like I feel peace because it's inside of me, the inner peace. I'm good at forgiveness, and I'm good at generosity and being of service to others. That actually really helps me to feel better. Like when I'm grieving or things like that, when I'm service to others, I immediately feel better.
Awesome. Awesome. And so we've covered a lot of ground here, Jolene. I even have some homework, but before we get to that, what are some of your thoughts, Jolene, about some of the themes that we have covered so far?
Well, I think this is really critical, and all of these tools that you have been sharing are important right now because, you know, we're in the middle of a pandemic. We're in the middle of a revolution. For those of us that are in the Western states, we're in the middle, like literally in the middle of fires happening all around us. Our friends and family are losing homes. And so I think the theme of self-care and being in balance are super important. And we have to really concentrate on them more now, also because of like the political stress that's happening. People are getting tired and stressed. I mean, just from the political climate, in addition to everything else. So, you know, you mentioned about September. September is also self-care month, self-care awareness month. So thank you for being here and providing all of this awesome information and these tools for us to live by.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jolene. I also want to mention, ladies and gentlemen, one of the most powerful tools we have available to us individually is to, in November 3rd, if not sooner, get out and vote. Register early. If you're on the res, you know, you might have limited polling places. And it is so critical that our Black and brown people get out and vote. And Jolene, what would you say about that?
Definitely. I mean, it's the whole thing. It's registering to vote and getting out and voting. But we just can't think about ourselves. We have to make sure that our family members and our friends are also registered to vote, and to make sure that they get out and vote. Make sure that people have a way, if they can't mail in their ballot, you know, offer to pick it up for them and drop it off. And then the other important thing is the census as well. So we need to be counted because important funding is tied to that, as well as our population, to see how many there are of us, because we have been erased so much. The census is super important as well.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's move to our homework page. For those of our listeners, Jolene, that are really working hard on their wellness, I have some homework for them. Is that up on the screen?
Yes.
All right. So we just had you pick 3 themes from that list, Journey to Wholeness. Jolene, why don't you back up to that page, please? So you're going to select 3 of these themes, and you're going to write 1 page on how you intend to address these challenges. And when you have that completed, we want you to share your writings with your spouse, friend, counselor, or family member. And remember, epigenetics, talking about our trauma is healing. You need to share it. All right. So let's go back to our homework. Number 2. Write a letter of gratitude and thanksgiving to yourself, describing the things that you are thankful for in your journey to wellness. Share your letter with your spouse, friend, counselor, or family member. We can become overwhelmed. We can get depressed and get into that negative gloom and doom thinking. And so what helps us is to have some gratitude and thanksgiving for where we are at this moment in time. Jolene, can you give a little encouragement to our listeners to do their homework?
Yes, awesome. So we are blessed today to have Dr. Clayton Small with us, and he is giving you tools that are based in his research, but more importantly than that, they're also based in our culture. And he's dropping knowledge, and I'm taking notes. I'm trying to do the PowerPoint, but I'm here taking notes for myself as well. So thank you, Clayton. And one way that we can pay honor to those that are teaching us is to listen and to do the homework that he's suggesting. The reason he's suggesting this and offering this homework is because he cares and he loves us. And he wants to see every Native person live a full, happy life. And so take that healthy risk and do this homework and share it with others as well.
Absolutely. Okay, Jolene, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a good relative and tuning in today. And I wish you well and your family and your nation, and just continue to do the wellness work. Don't forget, our greatest source of strength is our culture and our spirituality. And You'll be in my prayers and thoughts as we travel down the road. Our Cheyenne people, we say, "Sawusawom." It's not goodbye, but I'll see you again. Thank you so much, Jolene. Many blessings.